Warning, is it really time to buy stocks right now? Because this pattern implies that maybe it's time to buy. So on the left-hand side, we have full candles. On the right-hand side, they're hollow. So what does that mean? Pause if you need to. If it's hollow, there's the open, there's the close. If it's full, there's the open, there's the close. So on the pattern here, what I'm pointing to is that on the left-hand side, they're full. On the right-hand side, they're hollow. And yes, this even works if the candle is hollow in red or full in green. That closed lower, that closed higher. It's that simple. It's not complicated. So do we buy the dip? Because I got my chips ready, Justin, and Nvidia is selling off. Why? Well, let's look a little bit closer. These two guys, maybe they're not pals anymore because Masatoshi said, I got to sell my stock. He sold his entire stake, $5.83 billion. Remember, Nvidia is a huge stock. So is this really what's driving the price lower? And is it really going to be bearish? Because as I read it here, they currently own 11% of ChatGPT, up from 11%. And he could potentially buy more to as high as 40%. That's like a really big number. And maybe he was raising some cash to actually put it to work in OpenAI, one of NVIDIA's top customers. So is it really bearish? If we look here to CoreWeave, this stock is having a hard day today. It plunged because it's actually delaying some data centers. They have some issues with some supply chain. So if we look here to CoreWeave, the stock is cratering. It's down by 16% today. So ouch. Is that dragging down NVIDIA? It could be. If we look here to another headline, it says that China is hatching a plan to keep rare earth magnets from the US and specifically their military. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But first, if it's really time to buy, is it only NVIDIA we're buying? I don't think so. This is an article from today, November 11th. And it tells us that AMD unveils a strategy to lead a $1 trillion compute market and accelerate the next phase of growth. Whoa, Lisa, those are huge, huge numbers. And over here, we actually have a release of a new Google feature, it looks like. This is actually Meet AI mode. I just found this today by accident. I'm not sure what it's going to mean, but if now we think about why they would have sold their entire stake, I think I might know the answer. Remember, OpenAI is supposed to start making money starting in December for selling what? Well, it starts with these two letters and it ends with that. You can guess the one in the middle. It rhymes with Rona. All right, anyways, looking here to OpenAI's big headline, here's why it matters. SoftBank is right there. So this is at the beginning of the year. And he crushed the trade. All of them. Nvidia, OpenAI. Solar power and batteries are planned for OpenAI's target AI data compute centers and their campuses. So they're going to need a lot of solar power, right? Looks like it. And as of right now, this week, Stargate is a joint venture between OpenAI, Oracle, SoftBank, and MGX. That's the UAE, that's Japan, and that's America. So the way I read this is that if they want to launch these 5 gigawatt data centers, and remember, there's been some delays. I think I have it right here. Data centers in NVIDIA's hometown are waiting for power in California. And ironically, Gavin Newsom is flying around the world to potentially try to solve this. I'm not going to jump into all those details today because honestly, it's a big can of worms, but I'll show you what I can see here. If they really want to launch this joint venture and really have these data centers go online, they're telling us what they need. They need solar and batteries. So is there going to be a really big investment? I think so. I think there's going to be a really big update because specifically, if we look at federal land for the NREL, this is what I'm really looking at. I've been talking about this for a while, and some people are probably a little bit bored of it. I know I am a little bit. All right, here we go. So renewable energy potential on federal land analysis. And I say this because we heard about an update for coal on federal land. Trump opens up federal land for mining coal. Yeah, that's right. That's sweet, sweet coal. So back to September, no thank you. They're boosting domestic production by $625 million. They want to recommission old coal mines. So if we're going to burn very dirty coal, I don't think it's all that clean. What could we do with this? Because we heard about batteries and solar for OpenAI, and we heard about supply chain delays, and also with NVIDIA's customers. So what does this say? NREL might be familiar with them. That's the National Renewable Energy Laboratory. They say there's potential for renewable energy on federal land. Who's in charge of the federal land? The federal government. That is President Trump. Photovoltaic utility, yes, potentially. If we go down here, this is from the government. So it's not me telling you what's going to happen here. If we look here, we see that we have non-developed land, non-federal, and they tell us what they want to build. They want to build a few things. They want to build utility scale PV, that's photovoltaic or solar power, which we just showed you. And they're also talking about, I think there's thermal, and there's also a few others here. Let me just see if I can find that really quickly. So thermal, geothermal. So here they tell us that there's utility PV, land-based wind, and geothermal energy on federal land. So maybe there's going to be a big deal. I'm going to ask you for one huge favor. If you could please consider smashing that thumbs up or subscribing to the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. Thank you ahead of time. All right, so we talked about Canada quite a bit for the last few days, but I'm sorry to break it to you. There's more headlines. So top diplomats join the G7 and meet in Canada on rising concerns regarding Trump. What were they talking about? Marco Rubio was there, and specifically, Anand also invited foreign ministers from Australia, Brazil, India, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, South Korea, South Africa, and the Ukraine. I'm not going to talk about these individual countries because we've been doing that for long enough. Here's what I care about. What I care about is this. There was at least one. So U.S. official Rubio, who said he might also be meeting with other G7 counterparts, and at least one of the invited non-G7 ministers. Well, that's pretty important because what he talks about here is supply chain resilience. Wasn't that an issue with CoreWeave? Isn't there an issue with power for Nvidia and critical minerals? Critical mineral alliance, you say. And he spoke with at least one of these other countries. So who could that be? Well, it could be any one of these here. It could be Australia. Sorry, it could be Brazil, India. Actually, I don't think Australia is part of the G7. So Australia, Brazil, India, Saudi Arabia, Mexico, South Korea, South Africa, or Ukraine. Whoa. Okay, so why is that happening? Well, yesterday, and that's a 2-day meeting, by the way. So this meeting concludes tomorrow. And then Canada gives their budget. So it looks like we're meeting with our friends and allies, the G7. And then we're inviting a few potential allies, which are these countries right here. But yesterday, Trump met with Syria. And this is what's really curious. This guy had a $10 million bounty on his head not that long ago. Now he's being greeted at the White House. Why? There's a coalition to defeat IS? What's that? What's the IS group? They want to shut down the Middle East. Yes, it's the Islamic State. That's what IS means. All right. So if he met with him yesterday, is he meeting with anyone else shortly? Yes, he is. Before talks with Trump, Saudi Arabia doubles down on terms for Israel ties. So I think what this is called the Abraham Accords. I'm not an expert on everything, believe it or not, but what I read here is that the Abraham Accords are a set of agreements that establish diplomatic normalization between Israel and all Arab states. So Syria, and we got Saudi Arabia coming, and I think Trump wants the Peace Prize. Maybe he deserves it. Maybe he doesn't. It's not my place to tell you. But here's what I do know. I know that Trump is running the economy like Saudi Arabia. So I'm very curious to see what Trump does on the 19th when he's going to be hosting that meeting. The 19th is also a very curious date. So Trump aims for Middle East recalibration with Syria, Saudi Arabia at the center. Interesting. This is from the Jerusalem Post. So it's probably a little bit skewed over to Israel. Trump met with Syria, and now he's meeting with Saudi Arabia. Two key players. We also saw Saudi Arabia on the other list, the list that was in Canada. So is this all connected? I'm going to talk about this for a couple of minutes very briefly because, believe it or not, this is actually connected. So we talked about Brazil yesterday, how Madden is actually, we talked about that on the weekend, actually, how the mineral company over in Saudi Arabia is investing in Brazil. We talked about Vale Base Metals. I'm not going to go through that today. What I want to show you is this. I briefly went through this on the opening stream, and this is the stock. I mentioned that it has been incredible in the last 5 days, 42%. In the last month, basically a double. Year to date, 295. But in the last 6 months, this stock is absolutely on fire. Look at the market cap. It's roughly 700 million. And the reason why this matters, and by the way, before I forget, I forgot to mention this earlier. Happy Veterans Day. Up in Canada, we call it Remembrance Day. So thank you to everyone who was part of keeping our democracies safe. It really means a really big deal to me. So I'm wearing my poppy pin right now. That's what we do up in Canada. We say thank you. We show appreciation. All right, let's dive in here because they tell us that their pipeline, they told us in a news release. They put a news release out saying that we have an updated deck. Here's what's so curious about this. What they say is that they have a $10 to $12 billion pipeline, significant global pipeline of 10 to 12 billion. They also talk about how they're focusing BrightLoop, a decarbonization and sustainable power. This is an American company, by the way, and strategic partnerships with Denon Capital for data center power projects, and $1.5 billion with Applied Digital. So the reason why this is so curious is because this company had news today too. What are they doing? Well, they're raising some money. So they're announcing $2.35 billion in senior secured notes. Right on the same day? Yeah, this is yesterday. Okay, so why does this matter? I'm going to show you one more company. I actually found about them today. Is it BEF? It's Brookfield. One second here. It is BEP. I think it's this one here. Why is the stock gapping down today? So everyone raised money yesterday. What did this company do? Oh, they're raising $650 billion. And by the way, this is the company that our prime minister used to run. You're probably tired of hearing about Canada. I'm sorry, but Brookfield matters. They have $1 trillion under management. I'm not going to bore you with this story. It's just really, really curious that now they're raising money. Because remember, we have a single investor for $50 million in here. Yesterday at market close, they say, hey, we got an updated deck. Applied Digital did not waste any time. Today, they're raising money. And the reason why this is so curious is because all the companies that I've had my eye on, they've all raised money lately. This one too. So they had a shelf-based prospectus, the exact same thing that BW announced, and that was for $500 million. So they've raised senior notes. I think it's senior notes. Yeah, they're selling some stock at 325. So the stock's now at 4.441. Why are all these stocks going higher when they sell stock? Isn't that dilution? BW did the same thing. So what's going on here? Why does it keep going up? It was down slightly today, but it's higher in after hours. So like WTF, what's going on here? Let's have a look at this map right here because, yeah, it's time for a warning. Whoa. Wait, in here they told us 10 to 12 billion. But on here, they give us that breakdown. 8, 9.5, 10. All right, 10.5, 11. But wait, America's is 11 billion on its own. Addressable market is 11 billion. So what's going on here? Are these numbers incorrect? Because when I do a quick little addition here, I see 11 plus 5, well, that's 16, plus 6, that's 21. Then we get 24. 8 versus 11, 1.4 versus 5. $500 million versus, that's for the Asia Pacific. There's $5.5 billion missing here. What's going on? And then for Asia, for Africa, there's money missing here too. If you look at the grid here, we can see exactly where they're located as well. If there's green or blue dots, those seem important. There's not just sales rep, there's also support. If we look up here, we just heard about that BrightLoop project here. So I want to talk about that very briefly because honestly, this is an American company. We should be familiar with it. So if we're having AI data center issues right now, manufacturing seems pretty important. What's that little red dot right there? That's up in Canada. Why is that there? There's some red dots in America. I see 1 and 2. There's a red dot in Mexico, but why this one here? Oh, Energy East. Wait, what does this say? You probably don't recognize any of this, so let me just briefly show it to you. All that matters. We're looking down at the legend. Existing pipeline. And then we got new pipeline segments. So we got to connect this part right here. That's where all the oil is, by the way. All right, big old oil. We call that oil patch, oil country. It goes to Moose Jaw, Regina, Mooseman, Brandon, Port La Prairie, all the way over here. And then, whoa, it's orange again. Ottawa to Montreal, to Trois-Rivières, to Lévis, to over here to St. John, New Brunswick. Oh, wait, isn't that the place we just saw over here? Yeah, it is. That's what I'm trying to show you. And there's a huge opportunity here because There is Energy East, which I'm just showing you right now. We can see it right here. That's the part that has to get connected. But there's also Wind West. So if America doesn't want our power, because apparently you guys do not, we're going to take charge of it. That's the way that I read it. Nova Scotia, again, is the province or state that I just showed you. They tell us that we have an abundance of offshore energy. And that's exactly what every company's talking about so far. Remember, I talked about that earlier in the video. So inside this video here, what they tell us is that we have Energy East and Wind West. And this is from the premier, basically like our governor up here. So he talks about all these things and he says that right now we got a lot, we can power a lot of data. So we want to build these things to shoot our offshore energy all the way back to the west. So there's west and east. I'm not going to bore you with the details. I'll show you right now. So if now we read this one here, we talked about this a few days ago, but we'll read it again now if it'll load. This is where they talk about BrightLoop. Okay, so BrightLoop, October 28th. Where? In Canada. Why does all this matter? Because you keep talking about Canada, and I just don't care. Compressed air energy storage, hydrogen hub, H2O, hydrogen, oxygen, compressed air, and hydrogen. Do you get it? I hope you do. Let's keep advancing. So they have a really big project here, BrightLoop, and that's in the spot right here. There's a green dot. So this green little dot right here means that, hey, we're going to go burr. So we're going to connect this. I'm making an assumption here. We're going to connect this dot to here and this dot back, and we're going to have a power grid because right now, honestly, a lot of our power just goes to the US, and you're our only customer. We have no one else to sell it to, so we're kind of screwed when you guys say, oh, you're going to get fired with tariffs. We don't have this right now. It's not connected. That's where all of our oil is. It just goes basically down to the US through Keystone Pipeline. So there's the premier right there. He says that we have reliable energy for Wind West, and it could fuel battery plants and AI data centers. Interesting. Also yesterday, TransAlta secures access to Alberta's grid under AI center plan around Edmonton. That's the same place I just showed you where they're doing the BrightLoop. Look over here. This is from the premier of Nova Scotia as well. So what are they showing us here? Nova Scotia's offshore wind and Wind West offers a rare combination of necessity and opportunity. These are all the cables here. It's even inside of their deck. So underground sea cables, what could we do with that? There's so many different connections here. This is all data, but what if it also had power going underneath? So if you guys don't want the power over in the US, you don't want that cheap energy we send to you because it's cheap. It's at a discount. We sell it below market rate. It goes from here right down. We help power New York. We help power a lot of the East Coast. Well, maybe we should it over to the UK, maybe over to Europe, because energy costs what energy costs. And we got a lot of energy up here, believe it or not. And this guy, he used to run Brookfield Asset Management. Now he's saying that the next round of major projects is coming on Thursday. Here's what's so curious. A company the government is really attached to is Nouveau Monde Graphite. This company reports pre-market on the 17th. That date's incorrect. I did check it. So pre-market on Thursday is the day just before he's going to be announcing this. He's confirmed the date during a press conference in Fredericton. So that's over on the East Coast, or basically where the Newfies are. We call those where there's Newfoundland and New Brunswick. We call them Newfies. Ironically, let's look at this guy right here. He's a French frog. What does he tell us? The finance minister says critical minerals refining is the name of the game. Monsieur François Philippe Champagne. Yeah, that's a very French name. All right. Oh, he was in Calgary. I know I'm confusing you. So for the Americans, let me simplify it for you. Let's go back up to the top here because you guys just don't care. But if you're still watching, I will explain it. That's Alberta. We have Calgary as Calgary is not the capital in Alberta, actually. I think it's Edmonton. Let me make sure I'm not a stupid Canadian right now. Is that the capital? Pretty sure it is. Edmonton is the capital. Yes, it's the capital of our province. We call states provinces. So AB, that's Alberta. Saskatchewan, that's where I was born. It's right there. Manitoba, Ontario. So from this part right here, where you see the line going from here all the way to here, the money guy or the finance minister, he was over here where the oil is. And our prime minister, he was over here. So this guy's on the east, this guy's on the west on the exact same day, yesterday and today. What does he say? He says his goal is to help make Canada a NATO partner of choice when it comes to supplying critical minerals and defense, becoming the focus of many countries. Calgary, Alberta. And they only got one employee so far. But this thing is called the Major Projects Office. So this is where the major projects are going to get announced. I happen to think some will be announced tomorrow. Oh, wait, BW. I recognize that. Babcock and Wilcox. Yes, it's the same company. What do they make? NATO cars. Oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, they got something called BITE too. Babcock Immersive Training Experience. What's this for? Babcock Canada. Okay. Wait, isn't that NATO? Canada led NATO multinational brigade in Latvia? Oh, wait. Didn't Trump say he wants countries to spend a lot on NATO? 5%? Yeah. But also, we're buying a lot of submarines up in Canada. Okay, so Babcock does submarines too on the exact same day? Ironically, yes. And there's two countries who are currently contending. It's South Korea and Germany. Okay, so can you tie it all together for me, please? Well, look, they're very excited about these submarines. I happen to think that there might be something going on here. On November 4th, they talk about how they're going to be sponsoring this as a platinum sponsor. Canada's defense and ability to operate undersea domains, like underground sea cables, maybe. And then over in Brazil, there's a really big update here. This is C3AI on the next day, November 5th. What do they tell us? AI sparks new current in Brazil's power grid. C3AI, that's AI. Okay. So in August, they signed a big deal. Yeah, they did. And this company is now, again, change of business as of today. I might be confusing you, so let me tie it all together. If we go back to the very first slide that I showed you, if this green dot, which now is a news release on it, is being announced, and we have a suspicion that a lot of companies are operating here in Sao Paulo and over in Rio de Janeiro. Well, look, there's four dots. There's two green and then one green and blue. South Africa. Oh, wait, they were in Canada too. Yes, they were. Asia. Okay, so all these places are connected. Glad you're following. If now we go further, what does it tell us next? So we got this one here. Oh, Canada tours South Korea subs as they weigh new multi-billion-dollar order. Wait, weren't they the ones who got invited for the G7 meeting? Yeah, they were. And right now there's two countries. Topsy said both Germany and South Korea have existing production lines and they can help deliver Canada some submarines. Interesting. So now we're going to look to this BrightLoop technology. I'm not going to dive much further because, believe it or not, this is actually AI focused. So I'm not going to show you all the slides. I'll show you the ones that matter. There's air, that's O2, right? O, H2O. So O and H. Then we got a fuel reactor here with CO2, carbon. We got nitrogen, steam. We got water. We got hydrogen. Cool. They're talking about CO2 all over on here, the loop system. They even talk about clean coal. Like, come on. Let me see if I can find that really fast because I found it so funny when I read it. I think I got it right here. What do they say? Oh, wait, DOE sponsored project. They built a 250 kilowatt hour coal-based CDCL, carbon capture center in Alabama. On the weekend, if you followed, there was silicon carbide going to Alabama from Brazil. Oh, and wait, they got small, medium, or large? Yes, they do. And then finally, I want to find that clean coal slide because the fact they mentioned clean coal, it stuck out to me like a sore thumb. Where is it here? Clean coal power production. So we can go net negative, but we got that clean coal. We got that beautiful coal. We got that nice, sweet coal. There's better forms of carbon, by the way. Here's the BrightLoop technology they're talking about, though. Here's what can go in: biomass, biogas, nat gas, coal, or petroleum coke. That's from Canada. That's from the US. That's from Canada. These ones can come from anywhere. That's what goes in. There's the carbon capture right here for storage. That's the carbon capture. And then we can see this has nitrogen, and then we have output. So this is what goes in, or feedstock options. That's what goes out: hydrogen, steam, electricity, or syngas. Okay, let's move forward. The DOE, isn't that Trump? Yes. It's already been commissioned in Alabama. They got silicon carbide there. Wait, Babcock's in the UK connecting UK homes to utility grid? I'm just trying to show you what is relevant. So in 2009, part of a restructuring between Babcock and Brown, not Babcock and Wilcox, they have infrastructure and they require regulated UK distributor. Ironically, something similar is happening in Brazil. But since this is a video focused on US companies, there we go. We got the clean coal. Okay, so what is showing me here? Carbon capture and storage. Yes, I know this might sound like kumbaya, and it is. There's CO, CO2, CO2 mentioned 3 times. Here's what's curious, though. They talk about the oil sands. Again, that's Edmonton. That's where we just got the Atlas connection to, Atlas Canada, I think it's called. Let's go down and see these projects here. We got a grid. It tells us operating, proposed, or in design or under construction. So we saw the green dots before. What does this tell us? Oh, wait, what's this right here? Brazil, Petrobras? Huh? Because we heard this. Brazil wants to use oil profits to fund the energy transition. That's from Petrobras. And Eletrobras is the electricity one. Petroleum Bass, electricity Bass. Do you get it? Let's look over here. Oh, wait. Isn't that the place we just talked about? Oh, Canada. There's 4 of them. There's 4 that are operating. There's Quest. There's Alberta Carbon Trunk Line, Boundary Dam, and Pathway Alliance. What's the name of this domain? It's Pathway Alliance. Maybe that's the one that's going to be launching because right now it is proposed or in design or under construction. What about America, though? All right, we got Illinois and Shoot Creek. What about across the pond? All right, we got UK. We got the Netherlands. And we got Norway. Okay. Case studies. We got them all right here. So there's Norway, 2025. We got the Netherlands next year. And then we got the UK in 2028. The UK North Sea. Did we just talk about underground sea cables that go to the UK? Potentially. Is there anything else I want to share? Let me actually see what this is here. I don't think I want to go through this one. So that's it. I showed you a few things. I don't want to bore you too much, but the stuff is becoming very, very interesting because Applied had news today. There's issues with supply chains. There's issue with energy. This is a great American company. And I happen to think there's going to be a really big update. So at 27 minutes, that's probably enough for today. Going back to the S&P 500, we're back to being fully bullish on the 1 day. We're cautiously bullish on the 1 week because we have a higher high. We just have to close the week out. And then as we zoom out, it's bullish on the monthly, bullish on the annual. I'm not sure if we're going to get all this economic data going into the end of the week, but here's what I do know. There's a vote for Canada on the 17th. And our prime minister is going to be announcing stuff on Thursday. So this is on the weekend. And then after that, we go back to COP, which is currently being hosted. Then we got South Africa. Trump said he's not going. Then we got the G20 over in South Africa. I happen to think we're going to get a big update. All right, let's do a few more really quick charts, and then we're going to leave it there. So why are these things selling off today? Is that a recent thing? It doesn't look like it. So I'm just going to try to understand what's going on here. So the S&P actually had a gap down pump up. And those hollow candles are really telling because if now we hide everything and go to a line chart, what does it show us? We did not close below the 50 MA. So a potential trend change happens when we get 2 closes below the 50 MA. Look what happened after 2 closes. Crash, trap, trap, trap. That's a crash. Up, down, lower highs, lower lows. We don't have to go lower from here, but the 1 day chart is going to break before we get the 1 week chart broken, before we get the 1 month chart broken. And we fix the 1 day chart. If we look here, again, at the beginning of the video, I talked about how hollow candles are expansionary. Here's the previous candle high. We closed over it. Then we did it again. So if now we look here to the weekly chart, like we're on track for a record weekly close. Record weekly close. Never closed more bullish than right now. For the NASDAQ, second strongest weekly close ever. It's tucked between the gaps right now. It's pretty ironic, actually. If we look here to some of the big dogs picking up the slack for Nvidia, it's Apple. Apple had a power move today. Look at this. Set for a record weekly close and a record daily close. That's right, stud. Might be moving higher. Actually, I want to show you one more quick thing here because we didn't have this in here. So G7 Canada. Because remember, there's all this NATO discussion, and critical minerals do count towards your pledges. So if we look here to smartphones, Canada's priorities include the Ukraine, Arctic, and security. However, there's going to be a working lunch on energy and critical minerals that are needed for anything from a smartphone to a fighter jet. Canada happens to have a lot of them, and we're going to do a critical alliance with the G7, and we're also going to be having supply deals, floors on pricing, and we're apparently going to be a guaranteed buyer. So remember, Apple has a silicon supply chain, $600 billion. Have you heard a lot about them lately? I have not. Since it's already 30 minutes, let's just look at a few more quick tickers because I want to see what else is really moving out there to tell us a story. Nvidia down, we talked about that. Apple's up, we talked about that. Looking across here, everything's doing okay other than tech. Biotech's having a great day, actually, XBI. If we look around the world, EWZ. Oh, wait. Isn't that Mexico? Yeah, sorry, that Brazil? Yes, it is. If we look here to a monthly chart, this is what's so curious about it. It's poking out. It's the first time it's done that since 2019. And this pennant has been forming since 2008, 2009. Is it finally going to break out? Like Mexico did or EWW off its right shoulder? That was a huge move. Wow. Oh, wait, all the critical minerals are selling off. Yes, other than a few. So why? I don't know. This one's curious. That's a graphite play. SoftBank, we talked about that one. They just sold their stake in Nvidia. Brookfield Asset Management. All right. TPG. Oh, wait, that was the Brookfield fund, right? With Bundes? Yes, $20 billion. Happen to think there might be a really big update on that. And look here. This one was down yesterday, up today. EPOW is moving inversely correlated to everything else. And Vitas had a huge move yesterday. I think it's getting dragged down a little bit with the CoreWeave and Nvidia news. But otherwise, like these stocks are doing really, really well lately. If you look here to GLW, this is the company that supplies all of the silicon over to Apple. The stock went mega up. Now Apple is moving. Are we going to see an update? I hope so. There is some warnings with crypto, but it looks like gold is actually taking the shimmer back from crypto. So gold is doing really well. We can see it at 41.44, and crypto is selling off. So looks like my charts won't load anymore, so I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for tuning in. Come hang out at 8:30 a.m. if you want more. Otherwise, I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Thanks so much.